Welcome to your favorite class again, Geometry with Mr. Jimenez. And so today we are going to talk about triangles. We finally get to this place. We've been talking about angles and now we talk about the triangle. So, what do we need to discuss? Well, here's a triangle. It has three angles, angle A, angle B, and angle C. And so what we need to know is that all three of these angles add up to 180 degrees. That means that A, angle A, well, not angle A, but the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B plus the measure of angle C is equal to 180 degrees. Very, very important here. We have another kind of special triangle that we have spoken about before and we've actually constructed, right? We've constructed an equilateral triangle and we said that an equilateral triangle has all of its sides equal to each other. So that means that this side is equal to side BC is equal to side AC. All three of those sides are equal. And an extension of that is, well, if all of these three angles have to add up to 180, then that means that these angles add up to 180, but in an equilateral triangle, they're all equal. So how do I make sure, well, how do I know what the measures of these angles are? Well, they have three angles. All of them add up to 180. So I need to do 180 divided by 3. And guess what? This is 60 degrees. That means that for an equilateral triangle, right? All angles equal 100 equal 60 degrees, okay? And now there's another kind of triangle that we also need to talk about and consider. This one is called isosceles. We talked about this one briefly here. We've said, well, okay, here's a triangle, and I know that the two sides are equal. We have two sides that are equal. And we have angle A, B, and C again. Well, if those two sides are equal, then the base angles, these are called the base angles, right? Base angles. And we know that the base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. Make sure that you're writing that down. The base angles of an isosceles triangle are equal. So that means that the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle C. Well, what if I draw this differently? What if I draw a triangle and these two sides are the ones that are equal? Well, it doesn't change. The base angles then just become these, okay? Then those become the base angles, right? It just depends which two sides are equal in this case. And lastly, we have a theorem here, okay? We call this the exterior angle theorem. If I have a triangle and I have A, B, and C, and I know that these two, right, we've spoken about this. We said that these two angles here will be supplementary. They add up to 180 degrees. But what's even more important is if we call this angle X, we know that the measure of angle X is equal to the remote angles. Which are the remote angles? The ones that are opposite to X. The ones that are inside the triangle opposite to X. So that means that this is equal to angle A, well, the measure of angle A plus the measure of angle B. That is what we need to know, okay? This is the exterior, okay? The exterior angle theorem, okay? And we're going to move on and find an example. So here's an example, okay? Well, first of all, let's identify what kind of triangle this is. Here you have a triangle, and it has these two sides marked up. Well, that means that off the bat, I already know that this is called an isosceles triangle. Okay? So if it's an isosceles triangle, looking back, I know that if this angle is 68, well, then this angle is 68. 68 degrees. Okay, well, since I know that all three angles of a triangle add up to 180, then I know that, let's call this angle here A. I know that 68 plus 68 plus angle A is equal to 180 degrees, right? And so when we do this, we say, okay, well, what is 68 plus 68? And that is 136 plus A is equal to 180. Finally, you say, okay, well, 1 minus, you guys know this part, right? So you end up with A is equal to 44 degrees. So now I can put in my 44 right in here. Well, okay, well, I need to know what B is actually. The goal was to find B, but I needed A before I found B because I know that these two here are supplementary. And I say, okay, well, B plus 44 is equal to 180 degrees. So what is the measure of B? Well, B is 136. Hey, that's a special number that we saw before. Well, let's use the exterior angle theorem. This would have been much quicker if we just used the exterior angle theorem, right? The exterior angle theorem says that exterior angle theorem, right? Let's use that. It says that the measure of angle B is equal to 68 plus 68. And guess what? 68 plus 68 is the 136. So the measure of angle B is equal to 136 degrees by the exterior angle theorem, okay? And it's also the same, right? Because we got it here. This is another way of doing it. So we have multiple ways of getting the same exact result.